book. All right. So today is a workshop to cover basically room inventory management. So at a high level. So that's kind of the general topic for today's session. And we're going to cover a couple of different features of YouLi, some of which have been around for a long time, some of which a lot of people don't know about and don't use, and then a new one that we've released very recently, which is the enhanced itinerary item type accommodation. So just a little bit of a sort of overview of this new feature, because I know people love to talk about new things before we dig into the old stuff. Just to let you know that the accommodation type is actually part of a general rollout of our enhanced itinerary items. So this is going to be the first of many kinds of specialized itinerary items that actually allow you to track more than just the basic data. So today your itinerary items is like a name and a description and some dates, right? Very basic information. So the accommodation is the first enhanced type, and it actually allows you to do much more with that itinerary item. And in particular, it allows you to manage room allocations within your room blocks. So we're going to show that to you today. And it allows you to actually add as many as you need across the trip. So our traditional way of managing inventory assumes that you just have like one accommodation throughout the whole trip, or even if you have multiple, your room allocation is the same across all those accommodations. So this new way of doing things allows you to actually manage them differently across your hotels and allocate people on the trip into those rooms in any way you need to, so that you know if you've got capacity for more people, like if you have too many rooms and you need to get more people on, or if you need to get rid of some rooms that maybe you've booked, so that you know you have spots for all your people and that you have the right number of rooms. So that's the new shiny feature that we're going to get into sort of midway through this session. But the first example that I'm going to show you is actually our sort of standard way of managing room inventory. So everybody on the call has run trips on YouLi. So if anybody's watching this and doesn't know kind of the context of this, definitely recommend going through the getting started process to get your trips into bookings mode. But once you're here, you'll be in a place where you are managing your price per person using what we call packages. And these packages allow you to set an inventory. And so in this case, I've got a twin share room, and I've indicated that these people will be matched to a roommate. Now that's text that I've entered as the planner on this trip. So that's something that you get to decide if you want to communicate that in the label, or if you want to communicate that in the description, however you want to convey to people that they're booking into a twin share and they're going to be matched to a roommate. That's up to you. That's kind of like a user experience thing that you get to decide. But the other thing you get to decide is your inventory. So how many of these do you have? So inventory can either be tracking rooms or it can be tracking people. So it kind of depends on which way you use it. And you just have to, at the moment, you have to know what you're tracking. And this is something that we've been working through, and we're looking to improve this so that you can be explicit when you're setting these up. But for the moment, you just need to think to yourself, okay, what inventory am I tracking? Is it room or is it people? And so in this case, because I'm doing twin share and these people are booking by themselves, and then I'm going to match them with roommates, this number is really people. It's 12 people that I'm going to allow to book into this. That means I actually only have 6 rooms, right? If I'm doing a twin share. So you kind of have to do a little bit of that math in your head when you're doing it this way. And so then what I can see is I've got 4 people booked out of 12. So I still have 8 more slots before I sell out on this package. And of course, YouLi manages that for you through the checkout flow. Let me just pull up an example of that. And it'll make sure that you don't overbook. So the whole idea behind this inventory management by package is not only that you're managing rooms, but you're actually keeping yourself from getting overbooked, right? When you use packages to manage inventory, it tells people, hey, if you want this kind of package, there's only one left. Oh, I'm sorry, we've already sold out of king beds. So you keep yourself from ending up with bookings on room types that you can't offer anymore. So that's a very important core feature of using packages with room inventory. But as I mentioned, of course, it's restricted in the sense that this is for the whole trip. So you don't get to have some people twin sharing in one hotel and then maybe in a king bed in another hotel and then, sort of back to twin share at another hotel. This package management system doesn't allow you to keep track of that. Instead, what it does is it allows you to keep on top of how your people are allocated through what we call invitation groups here. So like these two people, so I've named these invitation groups 2A and 2B, like as if they're rooms. So that's something you can do. You can actually, for example, you could check these two and put them in a room together and sort of name the room. But generally, I find that people don't typically do that unless they're booking together. So what we find is that mostly people are using packages where these two people, George and Rachel, will have booked together into the king bed single or double occupancy room. And they've chosen to book for two people into that room, as compared to Thomas Massey, who's chosen to book by himself into that room. And so what we don't show you necessarily in this view, but we do offer a configured report for, is a rooming report. And here you can actually see everything that I've configured in this rooming report by packages. And it tells you that you have 7 total bookings, 9 total people, and then it breaks them down based on the packages. So because you guys have joined this call, I'm offering you guys this standard configured report for joining us today. So that'll be turned on in your accounts after this session. And you'll get to play around and see if this is useful for you. So this, you can't edit this. This is just a report, and it shows you that Jeffrey booked in a twin share and Missy booked in a twin share. And then you can see that I have gone in and assigned them rooms. And this is me manually managing my room allocation using the free tools that are available on the platform. And that's basically just being able to jump into the Trip CRM and click on edit and set the room. So I've decided that Jeffrey is in room 10. And then I can see that Jeffrey is in room 10 and Missy is in room 11. And I've put Monroe and Myron together in room 12. So I'm not full yet. I haven't allocated everything yet, but I've kind of got all that. I'm keeping track of all that in my head, right? So, and I have to have a mechanism by which I do this because maybe I don't know the room numbers. So I'm just making up numbers to kind of group them together. Now, if they've booked together, it's a lot easier because they're just together, right? I don't need to sort of like put them in a room number together. They're just sort of booked together here because they're in the shared bed. And so you can see, these guys are shaded as being together. These guys are shaded as being together. And Thomas is the sort of lone guy out who's booked the king bed by himself. So I'm going to pause here to see if everybody feels like they're following this, and I'll let you ask some questions about our current package inventory management.
Yeah, I am following you, but in our case, like, well, I don't know, Ansley, correct me if I'm wrong, but what we do is we have many groups, and every group stays in different hotels, and each hotels, like some of them have quadruple rooms, triple rooms, so our room system changes like in every hotel. So I don't know.
Absolutely.
If
so you're talking about our enhanced type, which I'm just about to get to. So I think
okay.
You're highlighting exactly the problem with this current mechanism. So today we have a very straightforward core way of managing rooms and allocations, but it assumes that George and Rachel are going to be staying in a king bed room the whole time, whether that's different hotels or the same hotel. The way that this is tracked assumes that this combination stays true throughout that trip and doesn't change. And also is sort of based on like booking groups, like they book together, so they're rooming together. So our basic package room inventory management makes a few assumptions, which don't always hold true. So I'm gonna jump into the example. And let's see if I can get to the right one. This one. So I'm going to jump into the new capability, which is the ability to manage room allocations from an enhanced itinerary type called accommodation. So when this feature is enabled, you'll click on this button and you'll see accommodation as one of the options. So I've already preset one up here. It appears just like any other itinerary item in that list, but when you click into it, you'll see it looks a little bit different. You can still change the image, but it defaults to a bedroom photo, and you can give it a name, and it asks for the check-in, check-out time and check-in, check-out dates instead of start and end time like the other ones. And it always assumes that you're going to provide some sort of time for check-in and check-out. And then very importantly, everything else is mostly the same between a standard and an accommodation itinerary, is this section. So I've already started to add one type of block called double. And so I'm going to add another room block. You mentioned quad, so I'm going to go ahead and add a quad. And let's say how many quads do we have? Let's say we have 5 quads. Now the capacity is 4, I assume, because it's a quad. And so that allows me to create this room block. And now it tells me I've got 0 out of 5 rooms allocated. So I've got some work to do. So I'm going to start allocating people. So this pops up a list of all my travelers. And so I can start matching people together. And you'll notice as soon as I hit capacity, it blocks me from adding more people. So now I can allocate those people to a room, and then I can move on to the next room and allocate another 4 people. And as I'm doing this, my list is actually getting shorter. It can be hard to tell that, but basically there's less and less people in this list every time I do this because they're already allocated. So what you can see is that you can actually keep track of how you are allocating. You can know that you've allocated 11 already. You can know that you have 9 spots remaining that you haven't allocated, including 1 in one of the rooms that's already got 3 people in it. So you can kind of see whether or not it's because you've got just 2 rooms that are completely empty. And for example, you might decide to give those rooms back if you don't fill them, or you can just continue to fill until you're done. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Allocate. And we'll fill our last room. And of course, you can search here as well based on their names. So here we have 5 out of 5 rooms allocated. So we have successfully filled our 5 rooms, but of course we do have 1 room that's got an extra spot. So if you did need to, you can always come back in and add a 4th person in there, but you can't release any of the rooms because you need all 5 of them, right? So it's being clear that you've used all the rooms, even if they're not used to full capacity. And we also give you this link so you can jump out and double check, like, is this the right person? Have I actually put the right person? And you can check their profile and make sure that that is the right person to be in that room. And if you realize, oh, actually, no, I can't have Fee in that room. She's given me a preference that says, no, I don't want to share a room with Fiona Shrek. So, okay, we're going to have to move Fee. And then we can go back in and put Fee on that other room where we had a spot. Oops, wrong one. This one. And so now I can search for Fee and add her to that room. So that's how you move her around. So you can't move Fee until you've removed her. So you have to remove her from one, and then you can put her onto the other one as an example. And so we can see in total here that we've got 22 out of my 82 people are allocated, and 7 out of the 25 rooms that I've defined have been filled. So if you've gotten to the end and you've actually filled all your people, you might need to get rid of some of your rooms. So you can actually drop your room quantity down to 2 and say, actually, you know what, I've released those blocks because I don't need them. And that'll cause that to go green. So you can edit this block. You can also increase it as well. So if you're like, oh, yep, I need more rooms, you can go ahead and edit that allocation. And so you get to play around with this. completely back end. So as compared to packages, which are visible to the travelers, this is a completely planner back-end feature. This is an administrative tool for you to use to manage the allocation, and you do it per accommodation. So you can have as many of these as you want on the trip. So you could even have more than one on the same day if you wanted to. So however you need to manage that, this gives you that flexibility. And it helps you make sure that you're actually filling the rooms and that you're actually allocating all the people so you know everyone has a place to sleep. And then when you're done, you get to click the export button, and that generates a CSV file that you can then send off to the hotels. So that way you have the sort of the prettiness of being able to be interactive, but then when you need it in that Excel version, you can just click the export button and send it off. Does that seem like what you're looking for, Floppy?
Yeah, this looks better. Yeah, this is useful.
So what is the scenario that you typically face? You mentioned quads. Is what I just
Yeah,
showed an example that would be typical for you?
yeah, we use quads, triples, doubles, individual, like all of them, depending like on it varies between groups and between and with the hotels because some hotels don't have quads, but
Yeah.
usually we try, given that they're all students, like school students, we try to use as many quads as we can. But sometimes that's not the case. You were going to say something, no, Ans?
Yeah, I have a couple follow-up questions. So, Floppy and I work together. So, so typically we have where it's the what we call the group leader, but in your case, YouLi's case, it's called a trip coordinator. They are the ones, since they're the teachers, they're the ones who we put in charge of allocating the students. That feature possible for them to do this, like where we set it up and then they can allocate the students themselves.
And so you would want to give them access to come into this screen and click on the add room block button or just the allocate people button?
We would set up the room blocks for them and then they would go and assign their students based on requests or, we usually try to encourage them to change up the rooms every city. We typically have about 4 cities. Is
So
that?
you'd want them to be coming in and clicking these buttons and doing that for
Yeah.
you, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the client who actually sponsored this feature has also talked about kind of getting to the point where they want to give that kind of access. They're currently trialing it with their own team members to make sure it's what they need it to be before they sort of roll it out to their group leaders. So the expectation is there will be a role like that. It probably won't be trip coordinator, but there will be a role defined that will be allowed to access this. So you can do exactly that. You can have your group leaders coming in and actually doing this work for you. When that happens, there will actually also be a button that will allow you to lock them out so that once you've clicked the export button and sent it to the hotel, they can't actually make further changes.
Okay. And then what is that role? Is that like a separate role we would have to develop on our side or like, we'd have to request that or?
It would be probably a role-based access controller, like a custom role. And I suppose if this becomes general enough, it might be sort of a general role. But it would be similar to trip coordinator and somewhere between trip coordinator and our custom roles, I think. So we're still trying to figure out if this is something where everybody wants something different, so everybody needs a custom role, or if it's a standard kind of role that we can define and then people will sort of generally get access to based on their plan levels. Okay. So it's a good question. We're definitely this is very much a feature that's in the process of becoming. And it is interesting, that consistency in terms of the request to be able to have your group leaders have that level of control, because trip coordinators cannot edit anything. So this will be a new kind of capability for that kind of role, where normally we would say trip coordinators read only. So that's probably why we wouldn't change that role, because it's read only, and we'd make a new kind of role that, maybe we call it group leader.
Okay.
Right. And that group leader would actually have a bit more access. And so I think it's just getting this kind of feedback and figuring out if the group leader capabilities are going to be the same between clients, or each of them are going to be custom.
Okay.
Mhm. But
And
that's an
then,
excellent question.
yeah, another question I had is, just from our experience, we usually do not share this with students ahead of time. We let them know when they arrive at the hotel, because otherwise it gets chaotic with children. They want to change, or they have complaints and requests. So I saw where you can hide it based on categories. Is it possible though, like, because it would be nice, I like the feature of having the hotel and the information for travelers and parents to see, but not have them see like the rooming block.
Well, you're in luck. This isn't clear in the UI, but everything that's above shows on the trip page itinerary, just like a standard itinerary item, but none of the room block information shows on the trip page at all.
Okay.
So that's exactly what you get. So in this everyone case, they will see Hilton and the dates, and they will see this image, and they'll see whatever description you put in, and any location you put in, but they won't see any of this information.
Okay.
And so one of the things we're trying to figure out is if at some point, like when you locked it, would you ever want it to show? And I think I'm getting like, for you guys, no, probably never. But I think we've gotten some other people who are saying, well, once we've allocated it, once we're done, we wouldn't mind sharing with people on their trip pages, so they know at least, maybe even at least what type of room they're in, if not the roommates, for example. So I think we're gonna find some configuration options in terms of what information gets shared in the future. But as of right now, and probably for the next sort of 3 to 6 months, this will be very much an admin tool and not so much a tool to communicate it to the travelers.
Okay. Makes sense.
So Nick, are you seeing anything in here that you think would change the way you manage your room inventory?
Possibly, because my guys really like seeing which rooms they're going to be in. But I'm thinking like our Croatia trip last year, we took a block of rooms at a hotel. It would have been This would have made that a lot easier, just being able to take the names and having that done. The other thing that I think would be fun, but this is, you got to know your group, is if you're going to have two people in a room, this kind of becomes a roulette sort of thing for them. So this could be, especially if there's a group of rooms that are maybe on the lower end, so the people who want the higher end rooms can get those, but people looking to save a few bucks, this makes it really easy for me to roulette folks, and they don't necessarily have to roommate match at that point. So I like that.
And yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing in terms of like the difference with Live and Learn, the student group stuff. Like, you guys don't let them have that kind of input, right? Whether they get quad or triple or double is not really up to them. Whereas Nick, I think in your case, you have opinionated adults,
Yes.
right? And so so then they're going to either have an opinion about the quality of the room or very strongly about their roommate.
Right.
And you need to sort of take that into account. And so that actually leads me to the next topic, which is how to gather the information so that you know how to match them. And that could also even be true in the student group case, where you want to try to make it less likely that you have conflicts on the trip. And of course, gender is something that you can always use as kind of the classic thing. But I've listed out a couple of examples of questions here to sort of think about, okay, what additional questions could you ask of your travelers that would allow you to match them properly? So for example, maybe not for the smoker category, or sorry, the student category, but do they smoke, do they vape, that kind of thing? Do they snore? And maybe a little like description of themselves for a potential roommate, just to sort of have a little bit of a personality. I think that might work a little bit more for Nick. Like if you're publishing that list of who's going, that they could almost like sell themselves as a roommate and be like, I am super quiet and I'm super clean. You want me for a roommate, kind of thing. Or maybe you flip it the other way and ask them to describe what their perfect roommate is, or even indicate if they have a preferred gender. So don't just assume that just because their gender is this, that they want to room with the same gender. Maybe you ask them what their preferred rooming gender is. So, definitely depends on your audience, what questions. These are just examples. And then of course the ultimate simplicity, if they know who they want as their preferred roommate, you can just give them space to ask for that. And I think, Nick, for you, that would be probably one of the easiest ways to kind of gather that information. If you are sharing with people, like the other people that are on the trip. So for example, if Nora is going on this trip, she can actually, oh, I've turned that off. Hold on a second. Let me go turn on the people. She can actually see who else is going. It's not showing at the moment. Oh, right, sorry. That's because she hasn't booked in. Sorry, let me just jump over to the other one. So one of the challenges with these examples is that you have to sort of figure out what you want to show to people. And so what I'm demonstrating now is that when you have people booked in, and sorry, I'm getting myself confused about which of my examples I've got pulled up here. So just give me 1 second to see. So this is an example of Nora's profile, right? And so this is a really simple one. And if there were other people booked onto the trip, she would see the rest of those. And then she could change her mind and go back into the task and say, oh, actually, you know what? I want a room with Claire, right? Or sorry, I said I wanted a room with Claire, but now I want to change it to Missy or something like that. So you can actually have them sort of take a look at who else is going, and they can amend their named roommate preference, for example. But I think those kinds of more complex ones, I think, apply for adults more than it does for student groups. And I would say for the student groups, you're probably going to be more likely gathering this information and then using it yourself behind the scenes. So when you gather that information, like preferred gender, or if they know who their preferred roommate is, then you can have all this data on file so that when you're going into that trip and you're actually, just jump back to here, and you're actually doing this allocation, you're referencing the data that you collected for them. And so we've had some of our clients have told us that they collect up to like 10 pieces of information in order to help them allocate people properly. And this includes things like what temperature they prefer the room to be at, or let's see, what was the other one? What time do they wake up? And what are your pet peeves? So what is something that's really going to push your button? Because if you put those two people together, then you're going to have some sort of drama happening. So it's been interesting to discover like the amount of information that especially retreat organizers tend to gather to be able to figure out how to do this allocation. Because this tool doesn't really tell you whether or not Ian and Gregory should be roomed together. We just let you do that allocation. And so I think the next step in this journey is, how do you decide that Gregory and Ian are the right ones to room together? And I think for Live and Learn, the answer is just delegate that to the group leader, right? And I think for Nick, that's maybe a little bit more complicated.
I'll just write a AI a ChatGPT prompt and have it analyze the data and then have it match those folks up.
There you go. So there's sort of no wrong way to do this, I would say, in terms of in principle. This is the art of this kind of experience. You guys are creating group experiences and you need to put people together in rooms. And so however you can do it so that you get the best outcome is obviously the right answer. So we've just put a few examples out here, and I would just throw out to say, are there any questions that you guys currently ask for roommate stuff that you would recommend to other people to ask on their forums?
For live and learn?
For anybody, yeah.
No. No, we put it, like you had just mentioned, we put it all in the hands of the group leader since they know their students the best. So there's
Fair
nothing
enough.
included.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nick,
I
you
would
found
I would add, sorry, Jen, sorry to interrupt. The only thing that I would add to the form that you like, the questions that you showed us, that it says, where it says be honest, do you snore? I would also add the option sometimes, because maybe people can snore sometimes. It's not like a yes
yeah.
or no answer, just
Yeah,
a tip.
yeah. The other one is, do you sleepwalk? That kind of
Ah,
thing.
yeah. Do you speak while you sleep? There's many things that you can ask them, but
Well, and
I think those are the basic ones.
right, but even if you were to delegate this to your group leaders, they may still, like to have some of that information, and that's why we do link off to that trip board here, so you could double
Ah,
check.
okay.
Like, okay, well, I've put these two people together, but let's just make sure, like, so if you did have on your registration form some of those questions, then you could allow your trip coordinator to sort of see that information and allow that to help them to make that decision. So then it is information you would be collecting, but it'd be information that they would be using to do that.
Great. Mm.
All right. Well, just checking, Lori, you've gone quiet there. I hope we've answered all of your questions on this. But if you had any, please feel free to pop back on and let us know. And oh,
No, no, I'm good. I like the part where you added where we can allocate who's in the room. So I think
this
I'm
one
yeah,
here.
because my issue always was that we always had I didn't understand, or I wasn't correctly using the number of rooms that we had allocated. So say if I had 20 rooms, but those 20 rooms could be any combination of singles and doubles or what have you. So on a regular basis, if we go in and allocate who's in the room, that'll help us keep better track. Because I have at times oversold my inventory because I just couldn't track it.
And have you taken advantage, because this is relatively new, the ability to choose occupancy upon booking, so that when they book, they either book it as a double or as a single?
So what I just know, so I have people book as a single or a double, but still each person is booking their own room. I mean, so most of my clients are like the ones, or if they're double occupancy, usually, the two roommates are booking independently. Sometimes I get the couples usually will book, one person will book for both, but for my twin room, they're booking separately.
And so most of the time you have this case where you have a sort of a twin share kind of case where people are booking independently, but knowing that they're going to get matched as a roommate, right?
Yeah, they usually know. Most people have roommates. Like, okay, my friend, I booked today. My roommate may not book till next week. I don't really I match people occasionally, but most of the time they're self matching. They just don't necessarily book at the same time. And
And so
so,
if you were using this sort of rooming allocation, would you ever want this to be visible to your travelers, or would you continue to use it as a private thing and then you sort of share it at
yeah,
the time they check
I
in?
will keep it private. The travelers don't see who else is going. And I don't, even the people that need to be matched, like I no longer, I had a bad situation early on where I matched somebody. So now what I do is, if people want to be matched, I just email them each other. I just say, look, Mary meets Sue, you guys talk and let me know if you want to be matched. And that's how that's how I do it now. People have to talk to each other and find out if they are a match, and then they come back and let me know, oh yeah, Mary and I match, or Mary and I don't match. So I kind of handle that totally different. I don't match people,
So you could
myself.
like leave a note for yourself and say, introduced Amanda and
Yeah. So what
Amr
would be
to
nice
see
is,
if
I mean, I
they
guess if
fit.
people could self-match, you know, if people could, I guess if I could have it so that, all right, these 4 people are looking for roommates and they can reach out to each other. Yeah, but I don't, I wash my hands of that, a matching, myself.
So you, well, and that's an interesting one. You sort of wash your hands of it, but you still need to do the allocation in some way
Yeah,
at
I
the end
still
of the
would
day,
allocate,
right?
like, I don't actually do they come back and say, yes, Lori, we have decided to room together. Cause I'll know, people will reach out to me and say, you know, I don't have a roommate. I don't want to pay a single supplement. Do you know who anyone else who's also a single? And I'm like, oh yeah, I do. So I do it really, it's really offline manually. I'll just send them an email and say, you guys chat and let me know what you decide. You know, so then that's
Yeah.
how it's done. Sometimes it's a no, like, which is, I'm glad. I'm like, oh my God. Sometimes, like, you know what, we really don't, I sleep with the light on all night and sleep the TV on. So sometimes it's a no. And then, but sometimes it's a yes. And then they have agreed to it. So no one could be mad with me if, you know, something goes awry. Yeah.
So it's such a fraught thing, right? It's such a challenging thing, the idea of like sharing a room with a stranger. So I
Mm-hmm.
can understand, how delicate this is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
and I think this tool is just to give you, it's almost, I mean, it's pure admin, right? It's just pure like, I have this many bodies
Mm-hmm.
in this many rooms kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so, the challenge of making sure that you're doing that right is such a human challenge, like something that
Right.
technology can't completely solve. But I'm
Right.
keen to continue to support you guys to get closer to that. And of course, you can use the notes here for yourself, so you can like create your like, ideally it would be this, but I've told these people to go talk to each other and then I'll come back and confirm it, right?
Yeah.
Would
Yeah.
probably be
It
the
could be
way
that
that
way
you
as
would
well.
use
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the thing that I also want to note about this tool, this new one, so the enhanced accommodation, is that it has nothing to do with packages. So it's a completely independent capability. So it's room allocation for a particular accommodation on the trip, right? It's not, and so if people have booked in, um, together, you could still room them separately if that was what you wanted to do. So I do just want to call that out, that at the moment there's no linkage between packages and bookings and this new capability for managing allocations by room blocks. And that's by design. But I'm also curious to hear if people sort of feel like, yeah, but they're kind of still related. I'd still like to maybe pre-populate based on bookings and then change it afterwards. Or do you like the idea that it's just like, nope, it's just a separate thing, and I get payments over here with my packages and I do room allocations over here with my accommodation itinerary.
It would be nice if this became part of the rooming report so that I've just got it everything in one place. I understand that it maybe can't. If it can't, then it would be nice if there was some way to easily print this so that it was just a quick PDF so that I knew where all the rooms were.
So sort of similar to the configured rooming report.
Right.
Yeah, so you're saying you would love it if this rooming report kind of came out of that other one, this sort of PDF looking thing instead of just
Yeah.
the CSV export.
Yeah. I mean, I
Mm,
can always make it look pretty on my own, but
yeah, fair enough. Okay. So that's a different use case. Would you still send that to the hotel? Like you would send something that looks like this to the hotel?
I would,
Yeah.
but the CSV would be fine.
Okay. Yeah.
I also,
And that's interesting. So basically then instead of by package, it would be by room block effectively. Yeah.
Right.
That's very good feedback. Thank you.
something I have questions about too, is with the accommodation enhanced itinerary item. Is there a way, I know you can allocate the rooms, is there a way you can label what the room is?
Yeah, so that's just the label. So
Like the,
double-
sorry, like the like per block, like, I'm not sorry, per block, per room, like, so say Amanda and Amir are in a room together. Once I have those room numbers, is there a way to label those?
not through this interface. So that would be, currently you would be editing the room numbers here. So we haven't linked those two things together yet. Because a lot of the feedback we got was that people don't have room numbers until they get to the hotel. So do you
Yeah.
find you actually get room numbers in advance?
No, that was what
Okay.
my thought was, that we get them at the hotel, and it would be nice, like, if we somehow put them in for the teachers, that they could see from YouLi, the app, quickly, like, oh, like these people are in this room. Just
Yeah,
just a thought,
interesting.
just a
Okay,
thought.
yeah, so that would be something you would do on the yeah, once you get to the hotel, then you would kind of pull that data in.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of times where we're ending up just like sending a quick like picture of, oh, this is the list of rooms and who's in what room, and it would
Yeah.
be kind of a cool feature if like that would include
So
it.
it'd almost be like when you're editing this, you'd actually be able to like name it,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, or label this grouping.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the moment it's just a grouping. We don't have it doesn't have an identifier or a name or anything.
Okay.
Because most of the feedback we've gotten to date was just like, well, we don't know the numbers. So
Yeah.
we can't be
No.
forced to enter a number. We have to just group them. So
Right.
that's why it's kind of like free form like this, but that's an interesting one if you did have room numbers, or even, and I guess that would be, our best bet is actually to link it up to these room numbers, actually, so that it's consistent there.
Yeah, because for like us, it would be like we would need in that case like 4 different hotel room numbers, because every hotel, like, we usually do like 3 to 4 hotels per trip.
Yeah, right, of course.
Just a thought.
Yeah, no, it's a different perspective, and as well. And it's always interesting to hear how some people care about room numbers. And I do actually just want to make sure that people who do cruises know that we also do deck plans. So if you want to manage all the way down to the cabin, you can actually do that on YouLi. So that's just something to sort of keep in mind. If you got to, I know that's not your case, but for people who are actually like, oh, I want to manage individual rooms, we can also do that. But that's a different system again. So there's a couple of different ways, and I think hopefully in today's session we've shown you guys that there are a number of ways to manage your people and your allocations. And so you can manage them with your packages. And there's some challenges there, which we've gotten that feedback, and we're trying to sort of work to improve the way the inventory on the packages works, because it's trying to do a couple of things at the same time. And I think we need to sort of pull that apart a little bit more so that you guys can tell us when you're managing rooms versus managing people in terms of your inventory here.
So real quick, with your packages, I don't know if I thought maybe you're planning on doing the enhancement or the enhancement already happened. Does everyone in the same, like if I have 3 people that book together, or 4, if I have a couple of families that may book together,
Yeah.
and if they book 3 people, well, this is more like a group. If they book 3 people, they all have to be in the same room type. So I have a daughter who booked with her parents. She wants a single, and
Yeah.
the parents are in a double, but they all show in the same. I have to manually, that one of the enhancements that's
So
planned to
that's
be
one of
made,
the
or
things that we're working on
Okay.
next year, is to
okay,
basically allow you to switch so that instead of managing by booking, because then
Mhm.
everybody has to sort of be in the same package, you would actually manage by person. And so then
Great,
that
okay.
person could be on any package. But
Mhm.
then you're not, then you're sort of managing it in a different way. And that's partly why we've sort of released this capability to sort of give you a more robust way to manage room allocations that can be independent from the way that people are booking. Because like you said, you know, you could have like two families who have booked in, and the couples are staying in rooms together, but then their two children are actually sharing a room. Right. But those two children are on two separate bookings.
Right.
And so under our current way of doing things, like a booking equals a allocation to a room. And we've realized like we need to give you the ability to sort of track room allocations separately from payments and bookings. And so this is the beginning of that process. But yeah, I think it's so good to hear that feedback from you, Lori, as well. The need to kind of pull those packages out to track those separately, so that you can have multiple rooms sort of allocated to the same booking, basically. Yeah. Well, I think I've covered a lot. I hope I haven't completely lost everybody on all of that. I think mostly you guys are asking really smart questions. So that means that it's making sense. And yeah, were there any final questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Nope.
Cool.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you so much. And please be in touch if you are interested in joining the limited release. You can be in touch with sales to see if you qualify and what the current pricing is. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jen.
Thank you. Have a nice